The tears of the world are a constant quantity. For each one who begins to weep, somewhere else another stops. The same is true of the laugh. These words by Samuel Beckett perfectly encapsulate the tragi-comic ambivalence of a literary savant whose influence can be traced throughout the fabric of 20th century culture. This documentary will explore the life and career of Samuel Beckett, as it chronicles the biographical and historical context for his writing, describes its features, style, and genre, and discusses his literary corpus. Samuel Barclay Beckett was born in the Foxrock suburb of Dublin on 13th April 1906 to William Frank Beckett, a quantity surveyor, and Maria Jones Rowe, a nurse. He had one older brother, Frank Edward. Originally named Becquet, the family traced their descent to the Huguenots, a group of French Protestants who, faced with religious persecution, fled France in the 16th and 17th centuries. An adult Beckett's immersion into French culture was thus a nod to this ancestry and prompted him to reverse this migration as he permanently moved to Paris in 1937. Sam grew up at the Beckett family home, Coulrenard, and spent his time at the Leopardstown racetrack, the Foxrock village, and St. John of God's Asylum, all sites which would eventually feature in his works. For his education, Beckett attended Earlsford House School in Dublin, Portora Royal School in Enniskillen, and Trinity College Dublin, where he was deeply influenced by Italian philosophers Dante and Giordano Bruno, and especially French philosopher Henri Bergson's work on metaphysics and his anti-empirical emphasis on intuition, ideas which laid the seeds for Beckett's future work. In the late 1920s and early 30s, Beckett pursued an academic career, teaching English at the prestigious École Normale Supérieure in Paris, while also lecturing at Trinity College and Campbell College. He travelled extensively throughout Europe, rubbing shoulders with academics like Thomas McGreevy and William Carlos Williams, and artists like Alberto Giacometti and Marcel Duchamp. But undoubtedly his greatest collaboration was with fellow Irishman James Joyce. Beckett's biographer, the American writer Deirdre Baer, remarked that he adopted Joyce as a surrogate father. Beckett became his research assistant and a close friend of the family, toiling for years on Finnegan's Wake with him. Detailed information about Dublin and his childhood provided by Beckett was inserted directly into the book. For example, the Leopardstown racetrack of his youth appears several times in Finnegan's Wake. This intertextuality highlights the importance of Beckett and his work for understanding 20th century literature. Samuel Beckett lived life on the edge. The bleakness of his fiction is contrasted by the dynamic experiences of his life. In January 1938 in Paris, he was stabbed in the chest and nearly killed after an altercation with a pimp. He was also a war hero. After the Nazi occupation of France, Beckett joined the French resistance as a courier. Nearly caught by the Gestapo on several occasions, he helped sabotage the German army in the Vaucluse Mountains in a famous victory for the resistance. In later decades, keeping in line with classic Beckett-esque indifference, he rarely spoke about the war and referred to his time with the resistance as Boy Scout stuff. After the war, Beckett generally wrote in French and translated some of his work into English. His most notable works include Not I, Krapp's Last Tape, Happy Days, Endgame, and Waiting for Godot. The most significant feature of Beckett's writing style is the lack of features in style. Not much happens in a Beckett play. There is minimal characterization and hardly any plot or incident. There is no progression, no development, no resolution. This minimalism is not only a hallmark of his work, but a direct reaction to the maximalism of his mentor. Beckett revealed this to his biographer James Knowlson when he said, "I realized that Joyce had gone as far as one could in the direction of knowing more. He was always adding to it. I realized that my own way was in impoverishment, in lack of knowledge, and in taking away, in subtracting rather than in adding." Beckett's characters engage in dialectical monologues that go nowhere, a discourse made up of rambling exchanges. They perform a ritualistic repetition of actions lacking a definitive center, meaning, or purpose. As American literary critic Stephen Greenblatt says, in spite of the reiterated theme of non-existence, the characters go on existing, if only minimally, a stream of discourse, of thought and will, a consciousness questioning its own meaning and purpose. This bleak pathos is always accompanied with horseplay, banter, crude puns, and slapstick comedy, which give rise to a tragicomic effect. In what can be seen as a vicious attack on literary realism, by stripping his prose of congruence, rhythm, style, and direction, and dispensing with conventional plot and the unities of time and space, Beckett was able to focus on the essential components of the human condition, raising unsettling questions about meaning and absurdity, time and repetition, language and death. Beckett and his work are woven into the 20th century's cultural consciousness and are essential for understanding it. Not only have his plays been adapted numerous times for the stage and film, but were also instrumental in the formation of the theatre of the absurd in the late 1950s, which was a genre of post-war plays of absurdist fiction based on ideas of existentialism and included Arthur Adamov and Eugene Ionesco. Moreover, numerous notable writers, artists, and filmmakers, including Tom Stoppard, Harold Pinter, John Banville, Charlie Kaufman, and Derek Mahon, were deeply influenced by Beckett and have even publicly stated their indebtedness to his work. Major 20th century composers, including Luciano Berio and Philip Glass, have created musical works based on his texts. He has also found praise and admiration from philosophical critics like Jean-Paul Sartre and Theodore Adorno. Furthermore, his legacy has been immortalized in the physical world through tributes like commemorative stamps and coins in Ireland, and awards and festivals organized in his honor. Even the bridge across River Liffey in Dublin is named after him. All these things depict the vast and deep-rooted influence and impact of Beckett's legacy upon the various sectors of 20th century culture and society, and emphasize the necessity of his work for understanding it. Samuel Beckett was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1969. Almost 2 decades later, on 22nd December 1989, at the ripe old age of 83, he died and was laid to rest with his wife under a simple granite gravestone which followed Beckett's instructions that it should be any color, so long as it's grey. The gravestone lacks an epitaph, but perhaps these words by Bozzo, Lucky's master in waiting for Godot, can serve as a suitable epigraph. One day we were born, one day we shall die. They give birth astride of a grave. The light gleams an instant, then it's night once more.